The only thing he wished for was to be happy, to fall in love one day, to laugh in the company of good friends, and to live a completely ordinary school life. That was what he had always asked for. But reality had other plans. On Monday, he was beaten up. On Tuesday, toilet water was dumped on him. On Wednesday, his personal photos were leaked online. And on Thursday, he found himself planning his permanent journey to the metaphysical world. Today was Friday, and as he stood on the edge, he thought surely, if he fell from that height, it would be fatal. Yet, a small part of him wondered if he might survive if he landed in the bushes. All he needed to do was calculate his trajectory to ensure he fell just right. Before he could take any action, a girl appeared, her voice breaking through his dark thoughts. "Hey, there's someone else here too," she called out, her tone light and casual. He hadn't thought anyone else would be around, and now he felt a rush of panic. What was he supposed to do? Glancing quickly at her, he noticed she turned halfway around, her curiosity piqued. He tried to ask her to wait, worried she might call for help, but what she did next took him completely by surprise. With a swift motion, she caught a bird with her bare hands. "A crow," she said, holding it up for him to see. "Its body has been lying here on the terrace," she explained, her eyes sparkling with an odd mix of excitement and sadness. Then, as if sensing the weight of his despair, she asked, "Is it your wish to be as alive as this crow? Because if you're planning to go through with it, it would be much better to hand your life over to me instead." At first, he was taken aback, struggling to comprehend her proposal. Dying was a great waste, she insisted, and there were still so many fun things to experience in life. Her words ignited a spark of anger within him. "You don't know anything about me," he shot back, frustration bubbling to the surface. "You can't just say what's best for my life." He assumed she had come to mock him, to add to his misery. But the girl shook her head, her expression earnest. "That's not why I'm here," she said softly. "I want to give your life a better purpose." Her words hung in the air, and he felt a flicker of curiosity. What did she mean by that? She continued, asking him what came to mind when he looked at the crow. Did he find its lifeless body cute? He couldn't help but grimace at the thought. "Not even slightly beautiful," he replied, disgust evident on his face. To his surprise, she agreed, explaining that the body was just a stinking, rotten pile of garbage. "Garbage," she said, her voice steady. "That's exactly how you're treated at school. Like an idiot, like human trash. That crow is in a better place than you are, only becoming garbage after its death. You, on the other hand, are a piece of garbage even while alive." Her words struck him like a slap. Was that really how he felt? "Is that why you want to end your own existence?" she asked gently. He nodded, the weight of his despair pressing down on him. But even as he stood on the edge, contemplating his fate, she remained there, as if she were offering him a lesson in life. "What do you intend with all this?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Despite their conversation, she showed no intention of stopping him from doing what he wanted. She didn't know anything about him, but she could tell that he surely must have a miserable life. Framing him between her fingers, she asked him to tell her more. "Would you really be okay with being trash for the rest of your life?" That question ignited a fire within him, making him angry. Deep down, there was a part of him that disagreed with that notion. He wanted a normal life, to have friends, to laugh like other people do. Even though having a girlfriend felt completely out of reach, he longed to live the best days of his youth. The girl noticed the shift in his expression, understanding better how he felt. Clinging to the railing, she leaned closer, her eyes sparkling with determination. "I can guarantee you a life like that," she declared, her words leaving him completely stunned. She began climbing the railing to get closer to him. "If you're interested in finishing your years at school, you should hand over control of your life to me. You'll become my puppet, and only then will you be happy." The idea was absurd, yet a part of him was intrigued. "And since you want a girlfriend, if you really become my puppet, I wouldn't mind helping you with that in any way I can." It was a tempting offer, and he found himself considering it. "Do you wish for that to happen?" she asked, her gaze unwavering. Still a little hesitant, he replied, "That's not what I want." Suddenly, the girl grabbed him by the knot of his tie, her grip firm and unyielding. "We're doing this now," she exclaimed, jumping off the ledge. As they fell, she proposed a condition. If they both survived, he would have to become her puppet. As the ground rushed toward them, he wondered if this was really happening. Death felt imminent, and in those fleeting moments, he recalled the unpleasant moments from his life. Any reason had been enough for him to endure humiliation, repeated situations that he no longer wanted to be a victim of. During those moments, he always wondered why this happened to him, feeling completely powerless to express his anger. He just hoped that all those people who had tormented him would rot in hell. Then, the fall was over. They landed in the bushes, and he felt a sharp pain shoot through his body. Soon, he began to agonize, possibly having broken his arm during the fall. Beside him, the girl smiled at everything that had happened, unfazed by the pain. "See? The fall wasn't dangerous enough to end our lives," she said cheerfully. She grabbed his arms, her grip surprisingly gentle. "From now on, you'll be my puppet," she declared. "It's time for us to start understanding each other better." Once again, she emphasized that he had become her puppet, and she would manipulate the strings that controlled him. "Imagine yourself as a remote control car," she instructed, her tone playful yet serious. He still didn't fully understand why she was doing this, but for her, the reason was simple. She was tired of living her own life, so she decided to control someone else's. In doing so, she believed she could create the perfect life for that person. Kneeling before him, she swore she would lead him to a perfect and happy life, but only if he agreed to become her puppet. The boy was now intrigued, wondering if he could truly be happy. If it were possible, he didn't mind being a puppet. The only thing he desired was to be happy. Sensing his uncertainty, the girl smiled and said, "Yes, happiness is possible. And now, here's your first command for a happy life." She leaned closer, her face inches from his, and asked him to close his eyes. He complied, heart racing with anticipation. Then, she kissed him, as if they were lovers. Of all the possible things that could happen, this one definitely hadn't crossed his mind. It made him thoughtful, wondering why he had been suddenly kissed. The girl explained, "A kiss releases hormones in the body, like oxytocin, the happiness hormone. It puts your body in a euphoric state. One of my goals is for all my puppets to be happy. A story with a happy ending is always better to watch. That's why you will be happy. But to achieve that, you must obey all my commands. I don't need a disobedient puppet, and if you ever rebel, I will break you." He felt a chill run down his spine at her words, but there was also a strange comfort in her certainty. "Now, here's another command," she continued. "I want you to share one of your desires." He hesitated, unsure of what to say. To make it easier for him to understand, she asked, "What would you wish for if you wanted a happy life and met a magical genie? If you could wish for anything, what would it be?" After a moment of contemplation, he finally spoke. "I would want to take revenge on everyone who bullied me." The girl's eyes lit up with excitement. "That's an excellent idea. You've done very well in revealing your desire, because now I will fulfill it." His heart raced at her words. This was his wish, and it seemed to please her immensely. Patting his head, she assured him, "I will make this wish come true." The day passed, and he returned home, lying in bed with his arm bandaged from the injury he sustained in the fall. As he reflected on the girl, he thought she was just a weirdo. Even though she said she would fulfill his wish, nothing had changed. It would have been better if he had just died. Looking back, he realized that since his first day at school, nothing had gone well. It was hard to believe he had been bullied for such trivial things. His life really didn't seem worth anything at all. As he lay there, he wished that tomorrow would never come. But he knew he had to go back to school. When he arrived, he found the chair he sat in was completely vandalized. Someone couldn't believe he had come back. The boy sneered, "The trash is making the whole room stink." He was surprised that he had broken his arm. "I guess you must have fallen and felt a lot of pain," the bully taunted. He wanted to write something on the cast of his arm, but didn't know what to write. Knowing he was about to be humiliated, he didn't let the guy write anything. After that reaction, the boy seemed to lose interest. "You're such a buzzkill. Just go sit down already," he said dismissively. However, that behavior wasn't normal, leaving him thoughtful as he made his way to his seat. Just then, someone shouted that they would show the others something really cool. The guy who said it always did whatever he wanted, and as expected, he kicked the boy from behind. The force of the impact sent him crashing to the ground, dragging some desks and chairs along with him. The jerk bragged about his clean and well-executed kick, looking around for validation. "Did anyone record that?" he asked, and one of his friends chimed in that they had. They all laughed, entertained by the recording, saying it turned out really cool. Meanwhile, the boy who had been assaulted stood back up, a clear sign that he was ready for round 2. This time, the jerk planned to use his fists. Before the assault could continue, a girl entered the classroom, drawing everyone's attention. It was the same girl who had interacted with him the other day. She wanted to know what they were doing, but the jerk immediately found her very attractive. Interested, he asked which class she belonged to. The person who seemed to be the teacher explained that the girl was part of this class since she was a transfer student. He was surprised to learn she was a transfer student, even more so when he saw her waving at him. Upon hearing this, the jerk questioned why the teacher hadn't informed him earlier. The girl replied that she had announced it during the previous day's assembly. Realizing he had missed that, the jerk apologized for not listening and, being polite, asked for the girl's name. She introduced herself as Tamada Kubo and wrote her name on the blackboard. Approaching the jerk, she said it was a pleasure to meet him. Seeing that even her name was beautiful, he wanted her phone number. To his delight, she shared it without hesitation, using a QR code. The jerk added her to his friend list, expressing his wish for them to get along. The protagonist observed the interaction with a mix of sadness and disbelief until Tamada looked at him with interest. "What's your name?" she asked, walking over to him and completely ignoring the jerk. She mentioned that she had missed the chance to ask his name the day before. He stuttered a little before answering. "Kudo. That's a very nice name," she said, smiling brightly. "I'm happy to have met you." To the jerk, the fact that the girl showed any interest in Kudo was a sign that she had something loose in her head. He began sharing embarrassing stories about Kudo, walking up to him. "Why should I care about that?" Tamada asked, her tone genuine. "In my honest opinion, it sounds like you're about to tell a very boring story." She looked at the teacher, asking where her seat was. The teacher informed her that she would be sitting next to Kudo. For her, this was definitely fate, and she was thrilled at the chance to sit beside him. The jerk, watching everything unfold like a spectator, was left speechless. He was completely unable to understand why Tamada had chosen the other guy, Kaiba, and not him. In his mind, Kaiba was just a loser who had stepped in dog poop. It felt surreal that she would pick him over someone like Kudo. This couldn't be happening. Fueled by jealousy, he pulled out his phone, ready to humiliate Kudo once again. He planned to invite the new girl to a virtual group and post a video of Kudo being humiliated during lunch break. As the lunch bell rang, Kudo and Tamada decided to eat together. Kudo hesitated, wanting to know if she couldn't eat with someone else, but Tamada refused. After all, this was the perfect opportunity for a strategic meeting. As he munched on his sandwich, he still didn't fully grasp what she was suggesting. Sensing his confusion, she asked if he had completely forgotten what had happened the day before. Defensively, "We're gonna get revenge on everyone who bullied you," she said, her eyes sparkling with determination. She told him she had been invited to join the class's virtual group, and even showed him the invitation. Among the videos, there was one where Kudo was being humiliated. The jerk, who had been so eager for Tamada's attention, was clearly upset about being rejected. As Kudo watched the video of himself being humiliated, he felt a wave of shame wash over him. "Please don't watch that," he pleaded. But Tamada shrugged it off. "There's no need to react like that. I've already seen it," she replied casually. "I feel embarrassed when I'm naked too." Kudo's frustration grew. The situation was truly miserable. "You shouldn't have watched it," he snapped, feeling humiliated all over again. To her, it might have been a simple embarrassment, but for him, it was much worse, something he didn't want anyone to see. "Is that truly what you wish for?" she asked, tilting her head. "Wasn't that video published on a public platform?" He confirmed that it definitely wasn't in the group. She smiled maliciously, her eyes glinting with mischief. "If that's the case, we could post the original video ourselves." The suggestion was completely absurd. Kudo thought about it, horrified. "No one in their right mind would do something so humiliating," he exclaimed. He even wondered if she had heard anything he said, as he hated that video. "Is it your wish that the video wouldn't go viral?" she asked, her tone serious. He nodded, confirming that was indeed what he wanted. Knowing this, she pressed on. "Do you truly want to take revenge on those who bullied you?" Kudo hesitated. "There are other ways to get revenge on those people," he said, trying to regain some control over the conversation. Tamada raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "If that's the case, How do you intend to carry out your revenge? As she observed him, he realized he didn't know what to do. He could change his tactics, but that would come at a cost. The brutal nature of reality hit him hard. There was no revenge without risk. It was impossible for him to be so naive as not to know this, and he felt completely disappointed. The girl, however, seemed to sympathize with his situation. She reminded him that just the day before, he had been on the verge of taking his own life. If you were strong enough to stand on that ledge, this situation is no big deal, she said, her tone encouraging. Who knows? Maybe you lacked the courage to carry out what you had planned yesterday. Agitated, he insisted. I'm determined to follow through with my plan. The girl smiled with a certain satisfaction. If you're truly determined, this situation won't be difficult at all. I've even created an account and taken the trouble to write the post for you. All you need to do is press the button to upload the content. He listened, intrigued yet apprehensive. The video description was peculiar. They would pretend to be bullying him, as if the one responsible for it was blatantly confessing the crime they had committed. This is a much more secure way to draw justice to this cause, she explained. That single video will capture everyone's attention. Since the account is new, it doesn't have any followers yet. But by adding some viral hashtags, it will be easy to make the content popular. Your video of humiliation will undoubtedly set the internet ablaze, and all we need to do after that is let society deliver its justice. Worried, he imagined the potential fallout. This could cause numerous problems for my school, he said, anxiety creeping into his voice. The girl wisely reminded him, the school doesn't care about you. In fact, you're the only person capable of saving yourself. It doesn't need to make sense to worry about adults who aren't willing to help you. If you don't do this, you'll end up miserable for the rest of your life, and that's not the outcome you want for yourself. Trying to comfort him, she added, it's okay, you just need to do as I instruct, and that way, you'll surely be happy. Besides, I'll always be here to protect you. With the phone in his hand, he hesitated for a moment before posting. With a single click, the video now belonged to the internet. At first, he thought no one had noticed what was happening. Surely, no one would pay attention since it was posted from an account with no followers. However, as seconds passed, reactions began pouring in. Many people started reacting to his post, and with that, numerous new followers began joining. Likewise, people began expressing outrage at the bully's behavior. He was so shocked by the immediacy of it all that he dropped his phone on the floor behind him. The girl congratulated him, saying he had done a great job. She picked up the phone from the floor, saying that all they needed to do now was wait. So it's better to head back to class? She suggested. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the school, a student ran up to the bully with alarming news. The bully had no idea what was happening, so his classmate urged him to check the class group. Even he found it hard to believe what he was seeing. It's just a post on the internet, he scoffed. It's not a big deal. Soon, people will forget about it, and no one will find our school. Even if they did, no one would have the courage to show up here. As he walked away, a strange guy asked, are you sure no one would really have the courage? It didn't seem like it, but that guy was a streamer who specialized in this kind of content. The bully, however, didn't understand what that meant. He didn't even know there was a niche for this on the internet. The guy may not have looked like much, but he had 5,000 followers. The jerk was impressed. That really seemed pretty cool. Today, the boy was going to be a guest in one of his live streams. Still confused about what was happening, the jerk felt uncomfortable with the approach. In a moment of frustration, he slapped the guy across the face. The streamer turned to his phone, eyes wide, and asked if people had seen that. Did you just hit me? He exclaimed. The jerk stammered that it was an accident, but the streamer wasn't buying it. Is that really the excuse you're going to use? Is that what you tell your victims too? The jerk tried to defend himself, saying they were just joking around. The streamer looked back at his phone, addressing his audience. This guy thinks it's just a joke, he said incredulously. Without a doubt, he's a piece of trash. And among pieces of trash, he's the worst. It's people like him who ruin the society we live in. With that, the streamer declared he had to teach the jerk a lesson. Judgment came quickly as he started beating up the bully. The jerk cried out in pain after being hit, still having the audacity to ask why he was being beaten. Unfortunately, The live stream got blurry because the guy was too busy hitting the jerk while holding the camera. But he still managed to ask his audience if they saw what had happened. Some viewers commented that hitting the jerk was going too far, but the streamer defended himself. "I didn't hit him, he's wearing the channel's badge. Everyone who wears it consents to be on the stream." In the end, he claimed it was all an act, and that the jerk was exceptional at playing his role. Looking at his phone, he assured his audience that no one had actually gotten hurt. A discussion started among viewers, with some defending the streamer, saying he only retaliated against the jerk's aggression. Meanwhile, the piece of trash continued standing there in the background, bewildered and humiliated. The streamer had one last question for the jerk. "Why did you bully that boy?" The jerk took a moment to respond, thinking hard about what had really motivated him to do that. He remembered seeing Kudo walking with perfect posture, thinking he seemed like a really cool guy. That's why he had approached him. He recalled overhearing some girls talking about Kudo as he entered and thought Kudo must be very popular. By distracting him, he had caused Kudo to step in dog poop. It was unfortunate because Kudo had seemed to be wearing new sneakers. Nearby, two girls approached the jerk, and the first thing he said about Kudo was that he had stepped in dog poop. The girls immediately told him to stop teasing Kudo, insisting it wasn't funny at all. "It's like slipping on a banana peel," he retorted, trying to defend his joke. But the girls shot back that that kind of humor suited him. Unfunny and immature. He claimed it was better for Kudo because now he had a funny story to tell. But Kudo was upset. He shrugged the jerk's hand off his shoulder and said, "It's not funny at all." At first, the jerk was left speechless, not liking the way Kudo looked at him. He then tried to explain that what he really wanted was to be friends with Kudo, but the streamer didn't buy that narrative. "You're just playing the victim to avoid judgment," he said, shaking his head in disbelief. "It's truly pathetic." With that, he wiped the front of his shoe on the jerk's face, a final act of humiliation. Back at school, Kudo heard what had happened. It seemed the jerk had been attacked during lunch, and students started talking about how it really had gone down. The school contacted the authorities, and the culprit had already been arrested as a result of the beating. The jerk needed medical attention, and the teacher told everyone to go home early that day. The class was abuzz with gossip about what had happened to him. Kudo began to realize the implications of the situation. The girl beside him thought this was a beneficial outcome for him because, with this incident, they had achieved their goal. From now on, there was no one left to bully him. However, Kudo wasn't sure if this was the right decision. As they talked, the video continued spreading on the internet, and to be honest, he was completely terrified about it. But that wasn't the only thing he felt. The girl suggested that they skip school tomorrow and go out on a date instead. Completely enchanted, Kudo wanted to see what future she had in store for him. He went back home, unable to stop thinking about how she had proposed to go on a date. Because of that, he couldn't get a single minute of sleep. He started wondering if he had even combed his hair, only to realize he was beginning to feel anxious. He was just an ordinary guy, yet this beautiful girl had decided to go out with him. The thought made his heart race. The next day, she was very happy to see him and asked why he was wearing his school uniform. He explained that his parents would know if he went out in anything other than his school clothes, so he planned to change in the bathroom. She understood and said he could change now. Once in the bathroom, he had no idea what to do. He felt completely content at that moment. But a nagging thought lingered in the back of his mind. He was certain that she must be dangerous in some way. Yet she was too beautiful, and like any other guy, he had a weakness for gorgeous women. When he returned to her, he saw a few guys trying to flirt with her. As soon as she noticed Kudo approaching, she walked over to him with a smile on her face. "You took quite a while," she said playfully. The guys backed off, assuming she must have a boyfriend. Once they were together, Tamada asked if they could go to the aquarium. As they entered, Kudo felt a wave of excitement wash over him. Everything there was so beautiful. It almost felt like a dream. Tamada found the marine animals fascinating, her eyes lighting up as she marveled at the size of the whale shark. They spent the day taking lots of photos and observing all sorts of creatures. Even the dessert they ordered was beautifully presented. Sitting at the table, Tamada asked if Kudo was enjoying himself. "I am," he replied, and it was nice to see her smile at his response. Once seated, he gathered the courage to ask why she had invited him on this date. She explained that she did it with his future in mind. At first, he couldn't understand how this outing related to his future, but she elaborated. In the future, you'll want to fall in love and go on dates, she said. This date is an introductory lesson to teach you how to shape your behavior and present yourself as someone interesting. You need to gather some experience, otherwise, you might ruin your first real date. So, today is nothing more than a bit of practice. Intrigued, Kudo asked if she would like to date him. But before he could finish his sentence, she said, no. More directly, she explained that she didn't even like him that way. After all, they barely knew each other, and she wasn't interested in romance at all. All I want is to keep playing with my puppets, she said. I'm here to pull the strings and guide you toward a happy life. To me, you're just a puppet. Nothing more, nothing less. Despite her bluntness, they continued to enjoy the day, taking photos and having fun until it was time to say goodbye. She thanked him for the pleasant day and asked if he'd be able to get home on time. Since it wasn't very late, he assured her it wouldn't be a problem. Knowing that, she finally said goodbye, mentioning that she would turn the photos from that day into an album. Kudo felt grateful for the memories they had created together. Just then, a familiar vibrating sound from his phone broke the moment. It was his father calling. When he answered, he was met with a torrent of complaints. His father had found out he had skipped school. The teacher had just called him, leaving Kudo feeling humiliated. His father's voice was harsh as he told him not to bother coming home, wishing he would die on his way back. Only a despicable father could say something like that to his own child. This was one of the reasons Kudo hated talking to him. His father never thought about the impact of his words. Knowing he was in trouble now, Tamada asked if he was okay. She apologized, saying it was her fault for making him skip school that day. But it's fine, he replied, trying to brush it off. He had accepted the invitation, knowing the risks involved. Intrigued, she asked if he didn't get along with his family. Not at all, he admitted. We barely look each other in the eye. She apologized for bringing it up, saying people should appreciate their families. However, she added that he wasn't obligated to do so. Looking at him, it was clear how much this situation hurt him. No matter who it is, telling someone to die is always cruel. If Kudo didn't like his family, Tamada suggested he run away. You could come with me if you wanted, she offered casually. But for someone who didn't even like him that way, he thought it was strange for her to say such things. He couldn't just start depending on her unconditional love. That's out of context, she replied, sensing his hesitation. Since I have no feelings for you, I have no expectations, whether physical or romantic. In other words, I have no ulterior motives. The only thing I want is to save you. Isn't that good enough? As her words sank in, Kudo's memory started to blur. It was that day when everything changed. It was exactly on that day that he felt he had fallen in love with her. The realization hit him hard, and he was sure he had developed feelings for her. Tamada then suggested they head home, adding that they should buy some snacks at a convenience store and throw a little party. Do you like watching movies? She asked. I rent movies weekly. Kudo admitted he liked them too, and they made their way to the convenience store to buy what they needed. As they walked, there was something Kudo wanted to say to Tamada. He wanted to thank her for everything she had done for him, but she brushed it off, saying she hadn't done anything extraordinary. She also noted that calling her by her family name didn't make them sound like friends, so he could call her by her first name. That left Kudo flustered. She tried to get him to say her name, but he couldn't manage it. Embarrassed, he ended up apologizing to her. He also thanked her for sponsoring their shopping trip, since they were able to buy plenty of snacks. Pointing to a building, she said, I live there. Kudo looked at the structure, noticing it was a massive building. Apparently, she lived in a high-end place. Opening the door, she invited him inside. This is a very spacious apartment, Kudo remarked, taking in the surroundings. He asked about her parents, but she said they weren't there. I live completely alone in this apartment, she added. Sitting on the sofa, she asked him to keep her company. Do you have any movie preferences? She inquired. Kudo replied that anything would do, but there was one movie he was curious about. He had heard it was very good. They agreed to watch that movie, and as they sat on the couch, Kudo reflected on how peaceful it all felt. He wished intensely for that moment to last forever. But then, his phone started ringing again. It was his dad. Tamada noticed his expression change and said, "It's okay, you should answer it." Stepping outside, Kudo hesitated, wanting to know what his dad wanted. After all, he was still his father, and maybe he was genuinely worried. On the other end of the line, Kudo replied that he was at a friend's house and had been allowed to stay the night. That only made his dad angrier. "You need to come home immediately," he ordered, his voice rising. "I know you're at a girl's house. Young boys like you are too naive." He added that he was on his way to pick Kudo up. The whole situation frustrated Kudo further. His dad had him attacked, and now he didn't want to go home at all. Opening the door, Tamada asked if he was okay. She had overheard everything and apologized, noting that his dad tended to talk loudly. "Since he's upset, it might be better for you to go home," she suggested. But then she remembered he didn't need to leave since his dad said he would come to pick him up. "We might as well stay and wait for his arrival," she concluded. To Kudo's dismay, his dad's arrival was quicker than expected. He was already waiting outside, demanding Kudo come down immediately. "I tracked you using your phone's GPS," he shouted. The realization that there was an app spying on his phone only made Kudo angrier. Tamada asked if they should head down, but Kudo noticed an envelope in her hands. "I'll convince your father that you don't need to go home," she said confidently. Kudo didn't understand, but she ordered him to stay at the entrance, insisting he wasn't to disobey her. Without any manners, his father called her a whore who had seduced his son, adding that she even dressed like one. Kudo imagined this wouldn't end well. Not knowing what his father was capable of, he thought he should go outside too. As soon as his father saw him, he declared that Kudo was going home with him. In response, Tamada handed the man the envelope she was holding. It was full of money, and she had prepared it for emergencies like this. "Take the money and leave Kudo with me," she said firmly. Kudo was confused, assuming it must be some kind of prank. "It's not a prank," she insisted, asking if 1 million wasn't enough. "You're the kind of father no mother would give up her child for. Especially not for dirty money." His father scoffed, saying she must have gotten that money by selling her body since she looked like a slut. Kudo tried to ask his father to stop, but Tamada pressed on. "Think of other ways to make money," she suggested. "But you probably believe a woman can only get money that way. You're truly an uncreative and pitiful man. With you as a father, Kudo will never have a happy life." Irritated, his father shot back. "It's not up to you to decide that." But Tamada wasn't finished. "Why did you tell your son to die?" she asked, her voice steady. The man replied, "I did it for his own good. When I was his age, my bosses used to say the same thing. Weak people have no place in this world. They were tough on me so I could learn that too." Inevitably, Tamada laughed after hearing this, and Kudo could see the disbelief in her eyes. His father didn't understand the impact of his words. What was so funny? Kudo's father snapped, his anger palpable. Tamada replied, "It's an utterly ridiculous story. It only shows that you can't be bothered to care about your son. In fact, you probably don't care about him at all." She wanted to know what he would do if his son actually died. The man scoffed. "People don't just die because someone tells them to. Contrary to what you think, they absolutely do. And very easily," Tamada shot back. "Especially when the person saying it is their parent. It's impossible for you not to know how your son feels. After all, you're Kudo's father." Convinced, the man insisted he did know how the boy had been feeling. "Even so, I call him a coward. That's why I'm teaching him to be a man." Tamada countered, "You have the wrong impression. Words alone don't count as education. After talking to you, I finally understand. You're completely unnecessary for Kudo's happiness. I will be the one responsible for it." The man only grew angrier, saying she didn't know anything. "Are you planning to marry my son?" he asked incredulously. "Having a peaceful family to raise a child in is the first step to a happy life," she explained. "To ensure he has such a future, I will help Kudo boost his popularity, intelligence, achievements, and more. But I won't be the one to build a family with him. I will simply act as his control tower. From this day forward, I will show Kudo how to be happy under my guidance." Such a bold statement left them both deep in thought. To Kudo's father, it was all a joke. After all, she was just a kid. "If you're truly capable of doing that, prove it to me now," he challenged. Taking her phone, Tamada said she wouldn't waste any more time. She began talking to her father about something they had discussed earlier. "Do it immediately," she instructed before ending the call. The man didn't understand what was happening until his own phone started ringing. To his surprise, it was the company president. Tamada urged him to answer. It must be urgent. When he picked up, the person on the other end apologized for the sudden call. They expressed gratitude for his work, but said it was necessary to let him go. "We apologize for this decision," they said, "and we ask that you don't hold a grudge. We also have families to support." When the call ended, Kudo's father turned to Tamada, his expression a mix of disbelief and anger. "Was this your doing?" "Indeed it was," she replied calmly. "I asked my father to do this for me. Are you familiar with the Tamada Real Estate Group?" He knew exactly who they were. That company had bought the business he worked for, and it was led by her father. "So you asked your father to fire me?" he asked incredulously. Tamada nodded. "I wouldn't even mind asking my father to rehire you, but if you continue being resistant, I will ensure you won't be hired anywhere else." Frustrated, Kudo accused Tamada of joking, but she confirmed it was no bluff. "Now it's up to you to decide what to do," she said, her tone serious. "The fact remains, you've been fired. As a grown man, you should know what the right choice is." The man collapsed to the floor in disappointment, realizing he had no choice. Tamada extended the envelope toward him, and he grabbed it, completely furious. It seemed he had made the right decision after all. Turning back to Kudo, she said, "I've removed an obstacle from your path. Now we can go back to watching the movie peacefully." She grabbed him by the arm, hurrying him along. Kudo returned to the apartment, still incredulous about what had just happened. "I only did it because you insisted," he said, trying to process the whirlwind of events. Now, he wanted to know what Kudo's relationship with her was. It wasn't for him to dwell on, so he decided to ask the boy directly. Back in the apartment, they settled in to finish watching the movie. Kudo felt a huge burden lift off his shoulders. With Tamada's intervention, he wouldn't have to deal with his father anymore. But at the same time, he wasn't sure if this was the right decision. He was still a minor, and leaving home was never a good idea. Even so, he felt a great deal of gratitude toward her and was thankful to have a place to stay. Yet, uncertainty gnawed at him, especially since he had cut ties with everyone in his life. Those people were still his family, and he couldn't help but wonder what his mother would say when she found out. She probably wouldn't say anything, as she always followed behind his father. Noticing he seemed deep in thought, Tamada asked if something was wrong. "Are you worried about what just happened?" she inquired. "If that's the case, I won't judge you. After all, you've just been separated from your family." She assured him everything would be fine. "I promise to make you happy," she swore. Kudo wanted to know why she always acted that way. The movie finally ended, and she said it had been a lot of fun. Kudo agreed, admitting he had been deeply moved by the story. The final scene had been great, but Tamada thought it was bordering on cliché. She suggested another movie to watch next, and Kudo couldn't believe they were going to watch a second film. "Do you not want to?" she asked, a teasing glint in her eye. "No, I would actually love to," he replied, feeling a rush of excitement. They ended up watching a romance movie, a classic choice for anyone having a date at home. Tamada told him that all of this would serve as practice for his future. Kudo didn't believe something like that could happen to him, but for now, she just wanted them to enjoy the movie. Usually, he didn't watch this type of film, so he felt a bit nervous. Then came a kissing scene on the screen that lasted much longer than he expected. It was definitely way too embarrassing for Kudo. That was when Tamada touched his hand, breaking the tension. In moments like this, it's expected that you hold the hand of the person watching with you, she said, demonstrating how it should be done. Taking advantage of their proximity, she suggested they kiss too, but that was too much for him. "We can't do that under any circumstances," he exclaimed, his face flushing. Tamada looked intrigued, as if she were trying to decipher his reaction. "You don't want to kiss me?" she asked, her tone playful. The truth was, he actually would like to kiss her, but he couldn't admit that. "That's exactly why we shouldn't try," he replied, feeling flustered. "You should have more self-respect." She laughed lightly, finding his reasoning nonsensical. "I wouldn't mind kissing you," she said, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "But that's exactly the problem. It would make me have expectations, and you shouldn't do that to someone you just rejected." Tamada found it odd since he had never confessed to her. "When we were at the aquarium, you said you didn't like me," he reminded her. I'm just defining our positions in this relationship. This left him feeling quite confused. Now she understood why he felt rejected. You're truly a headache sometimes, he said, exasperated. If two people aren't in a relationship, they shouldn't kiss so casually. No matter how much you want me to be happy, you should at least have some morals. With that stance, she said, Fine, I won't kiss you anymore. But thinking about your future, I still wish for you to gain some romantic experience. Hearing that, Kudo was left speechless. Then she proposed that tomorrow at school, they should find him a girlfriend. Let's get straight to the point, she said enthusiastically. You should write your own romantic comedy. She wanted to know if there was a girl he was interested in, but the only thought that came to his mind was that she was the one. Without revealing that, he said, I don't have anyone in mind. I've been bullied for so long that I haven't had time to make friends, let alone develop feelings for someone. Knowing this, Tamada realized they now had a starting point. Things aren't that simple, Kudo insisted, but she assured him he shouldn't worry. You don't have an unattractive face. It's only a matter of time before you get closer to a girl. He wasn't sure if that was a compliment, but she continued, Look over there. She pointed to a girl erasing the blackboard, who seemed to be struggling. Why don't you go help her? Maybe that way you can become her hero. Doing something like that, just because someone told him to, made Kudo feel strange. Kudo approached the girl, asking if she was okay and needed help. In the end, he erased the board for her, feeling a sense of accomplishment as he did so. Once the task was finished, she thanked him with great joy. With a smile on his face, he replied, It was no trouble at all. If you ever need help again, just ask me. The other girl, who had been watching, praised him, saying he had done well. It's only a matter of time before you become popular, she added. Kudo shook his head, insisting it wasn't that easy. But she pointed out he was wrong. Being kind is extremely important and something people often undervalue. Kindness is an aspect of life that's often overlooked by those trying to flirt. Judging by the look on her face, she must have appreciated that small gesture. Kudo didn't fully understand what she meant about writing his own romantic comedy, but he felt a sense of warmth from the interaction. As he was cleaning the floor in the hallway, someone called his name. It was the same girl he had helped earlier. She approached him just to thank him for his assistance. Since he took a while to respond, she reminded him, You helped clean the blackboard. Kudo replied, It was no problem at all. She didn't mean to come all the way just to thank him, but she disagreed. There's something I wanted to say. Though it might seem a bit sudden, she began, but then she became too embarrassed to continue. I'm sorry, she said, blushing. I accidentally bit my tongue. What she really wanted to ask was if he would like to walk her home. This startled him, realizing it would just be the two of them. She quickly added, Don't take it the wrong way. It's simply to grab some donuts, since a new shop opened near the station, and I don't have any friends to go with me. She explained that she was a very shy person. Earlier, Kudo had told her she could ask for help if she needed it. With tears in her eyes, she asked if his silence meant a refusal. He quickly assured her it didn't. I would gladly accompany you, he said, feeling a rush of excitement. Thank you, she said happily. Let's meet after school. As she left, Tamada appeared, teasing him about managing to get a date. But you absolutely can't tell her you're living with another girl. Of course, Kudo wouldn't say that, but he didn't know how to handle the situation. It felt like he was caught in some kind of fake love triangle, and doing this made him feel guilty. Then he remembered that Tamada didn't have any feelings for him. He needed to let go of her as soon as possible. He didn't know what the future held, but it was important for him to make friends and expand his horizons. Before, that had been completely impossible due to excessive bullying. Finally, he could enjoy what life had to offer. As he was about to leave, Tamada had one more request for him. Even if you go on the date, I want to hear all about it, she said, handing him a pen that was actually a disguised microphone. You'll also need to wear these earphones, she added, revealing they were listening devices so she could tell him what to say. That way you can follow my instructions even if we're apart. Just remember, don't try anything funny. As Kudo bid farewell to Tamada, she wished him good luck on his date. It felt like an enormous weight had been placed on his shoulders. While he was lost in thought, the girl he was going on a date with approached him, asking if he had been waiting long. He replied that he hadn't, and together they left the school, heading toward the station. Kudo was fully equipped with the listening device and earphones, which felt a bit strange. Through the earphones, Tamada asked if he could hear her. When he confirmed he could, he tapped his ear twice as instructed. Now, he needed to pay attention to her words and repeat them one by one. "Start immediately," she instructed. He assumed this had to be a joke, but he went along with it. Kudo asked the girl if she liked donuts. "Yes," she replied enthusiastically. Based on her response, he said, "I really like that kind of sweet treat too." He felt like he was almost dying of embarrassment as he repeated his words. Finally, they arrived at the donut shop she had mentioned. The girl kept guiding him, and he admitted, "This is my first time here." It wasn't the kind of store he usually went to. Looking at the items, he said they all seemed delicious, but there were so many it was hard to choose. The girl said she'd love to try them all, but 2 donuts would be too much for her to eat alone. "I know exactly how you feel about that," he replied, feeling a little more at ease. After that, the girl seemed to have something else on her mind. She pointed out that the words he was saying didn't seem like they came from him. "Why do you have an earpiece in your ear?" she asked. Her curiosity piqued. Through his earpiece, he heard Tamada suggest that he propose they share the same donut. Looking at the girl, he followed the suggestion. He thought she might not want to do that, given her momentary silence. But she surprised him by saying she didn't mind as long as it was with him. That was great. They could place their order. Kudo told her not to worry, because, besides ordering the donut, he'd also get a drink for her. The girl couldn't help but think he was really kind and thoughtful. When he returned to the table with their order, the donuts looked absolutely delicious. She thanked him for his kindness and offered him money to cover her part of the order. He had been instructed not only to refuse the money, but also to say something about it. "Don't worry about the cost," he told her. "It's just another kind gesture from me." The girl insisted she would feel terrible if she didn't pay. Then, through his earpiece, he heard Tamada instruct him to take her hands and say something else. "I'm trying to be a gentleman on this occasion," he said, looking into her eyes. "Please allow it." Overwhelmed, she said that was fine. After all this, she asked if there was a girl Kudo liked. Tamada was thrilled with the progress they were making. He admitted there wasn't anyone he liked at the moment. "That's great," she said, her eyes sparkling. "Because if you liked someone, I'd have to kill them." What she said was absurd, and Kudo thought, "This girl is crazy." With a smile on her face, she added, "I'm just joking." Repeating the words from his earpiece, he told her, "You're very intense and almost gave me a heart attack." After that, the girl seemed to have something else on her mind. She pointed out that the words he was saying didn't seem like they came from him. "Why do you have an earpiece in your ear?" she asked. Her curiosity piqued. Kudo felt a rush of panic. He had to think quickly. It's just a new thing I'm trying out," he stammered, trying to sound casual. But the girl wasn't convinced. "Really? It seems a bit suspicious." Kudo knew he had to remove the device, but he hesitated. Tamada realized she couldn't help Kudo anymore. He explained that before meeting her, he had been listening to music and had forgotten he still had the earpiece on. But those words didn't convince her. She believed he still wasn't telling her the truth. Kudo noticed a sudden shift in her mood as the girl started crying, thinking that in the end, he didn't care about her at all. Kudo tried to fix the situation, insisting that wasn't true. "It's fine," she said, wiping her tears. "I know that an amazing guy like you would never pay attention to someone like me." She apologized, assuming he must just want to go home now. "That's not how I feel at all," he replied earnestly. "I've really enjoyed talking to you." He asked if she was still interested in going on more dates with him. She said she was interested in continuing the conversation, and once they were done, she wanted to know if he would be interested in going to her house. Kudo was a little surprised by the proposal. She noticed his hesitation and assumed he might not want to. He didn't know what to do. Going with her would mean leaving Tamada waiting, but he couldn't leave the girl alone in this emotional state. After a moment of deliberation, he agreed to go with her, regretting that he'd have to keep Tamada waiting. He set a condition: he wouldn't stay long at her place. Once inside her home, he asked for permission to enter and inquired if she lived alone. She said yes, explaining that her parents were very busy, but sent her money to support herself. "I'm very grateful for the parents I have," she said, smiling. She asked him to make himself comfortable while she prepared some tea. Kudo offered to help with anything, not realizing what she was about to do. Suddenly, she struck him on the head with a vase with brutal force. There was nothing he could do but fall to the ground as blood gushed from the wound. Finally, she said, "I'm going to borrow your phone for a moment." She had suspected he had been lying to her the whole time. Checking his messages, she confirmed he had been talking to another girl. "You need to learn a small lesson," she said coldly, "and I'll do this for the other girl's sake as well." Just then, Tamada appeared, saying this girl was even more interesting than she initially thought. Kudo could only feel his consciousness slowly fading away as he succumbed to the darkness. When he woke up, he found his body completely tied up. Above him was the crazy girl, wearing nothing but her underwear, looking delighted that he was awake. He became nervous, not understanding why she was nearly naked. "I didn't want to stay in my clothes with blood," she explained casually, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. This made him extremely anxious. "I'm going to begin punishing you right away," she said, her tone chilling. "You pretended to like that other girl and played with her heart. For that, I will never forgive you." Kudo desperately insisted that it was never his intention to hurt anyone and asked who this girl was that the crazy girl was talking about. She told him she was referring to Arara Rio, but Kudo was taken aback when she confirmed that the girl was insane for referring to herself in the third person. "Actually, I'm the older sister," she clarified, her tone unsettlingly calm. "My name is Rina." To Kudo, this was strange as they looked identical. Rina explained that this was expected since they shared the same body. "Have you ever heard the term split personality?" Apparently, this was a new concept for him. Rina continued, saying that their parents had been a bit absent lately, but that hadn't always been the case. "They used to beat me for any reason and often locked me up in the garden shed," she recounted, her voice tinged with bitterness. "I would beg them to let me out, crying for my father to open the door because I was terrified. But the more I screamed, the greater my panic grew, and nothing happened. In that state of complete despair, she wished for someone to save her. That's when the second personality emerged, to ensure she wouldn't feel pain. I needed to use the girl's body for that," Rina explained. "I promised I would protect her, and that's how I came into existence. I exist to protect Rio. I have the right to be happy, and that's why I can't stand men like you who toy with her heart. Now you will regret everything you've done to her." Kudo's heart raced as she revealed her intentions. "I'll start with your eyes," she said, her excitement palpable. "I'll carve up your beautiful little face with the edge of my blade." Desperately, Kudo tried to suggest they could talk about the situation, but she had already passed the point of being able to discuss anything rationally. He attempted to explain what he was actually trying to do with her, but before he could finish, the doorbell rang. "Someone's outside," Rina said, irritation creeping into her voice. "I'll ignore whoever it is." But the persistent ringing prevented her from starting her work. The door was being jiggled, making her wonder if this was some kind of prank. The sound was too suspicious. The person wasn't just manipulating the doorknob but trying to break in. When the door finally opened, Tamada stepped inside, her eyes widening as she took in the scene. Kudo was completely tied up, and there was a crazy person on top of him. For Tamada, it wasn't difficult to open the door. She had plenty of tricks up her sleeve. "What's happening here is utterly disgusting," she said, her voice firm. Kudo tried to explain that it wasn't what she thought it was and that he desperately needed help. Tamada replied, "All of this only happened because you refused to listen to me." Rina realized the person on the other side of the door was that girl. "I'll kill her too," she declared, her eyes wild with rage. Tamada, unfazed, apologized. "I didn't intend to upset anyone. All I wanted was for Kudo to experience true love." Kudo's statement left Rina thoughtful, as it didn't make sense to her. "That has to be a lie," she said, her voice wavering. "Otherwise, there wouldn't be a need for me to be in his ear telling him what to do." Tamada confirmed that she was mistaken. "You're wrong about that. All I've done is give him instructions. He followed my orders because he entrusted his life to me. What he says, what shoes he wears, every decision from now on will be mine to make. And in the end, he will have a happy life." She asked Rina if she didn't think that was wonderful. The irony of the situation was not lost on Kudo as he watched Rina, still holding a knife, glaring at them. Rina shook her head, her expression darkening. Everything you've said doesn't make sense. You're insane, she spat. I don't consider myself crazy. On the contrary, I'm very resolute about everything I've said. Protecting herself with the knife, she warned them not to mess with her. She aggressively advanced toward Tamada, claiming that Rio was not a toy to be played with. Calm down a bit, someone suggested, trying to diffuse the tension. I'm perfectly calm, Rina shouted, her voice rising. Now shut up. It didn't take long for them to realize that Rina had a severe personality disorder. Tamada, trying to control the situation, said, Rio might feel sad about your actions. If you end the boy's life, you'll become a murderer without even remembering what you've done. After saying this, Rina began to look pensive, the distraction providing just the opening Tamada needed. In a swift motion, she lunged forward and took the knife from Rina's hands. Once disarmed, Rina held Tamada's head with her hands, unexpectedly kissing her. We could all be very happy together, she suggested, her tone shifting. For that to happen, I'll guide you all toward happiness. Kudo felt a mix of confusion and alarm as he watched the scene unfold. Rina's sudden change in demeanor was unsettling. Rio doesn't think that's possible, Kudo said, trying to interject. But Tamada assured Rina, you are capable of making it happen. I know your life has been very harsh up until now, but from now on, you can enjoy it much more. Rina still seemed unsure, her brow furrowing. I have no idea how I can be happy, she admitted. Tamada suggested they start thinking together about possible solutions. The immediate conclusion she reached was that happiness could take many forms. Building a family, dedicating yourself to a hobby, pursuing a career, each person has their own concept of happiness. There are many choices to be made, but I will help you make those decisions. Then she asked, would you like to become my puppet? Rina's expression shifted again, confusion clouding her features. Everything I've heard so far makes no sense at all, she said, her voice trembling. In truth, I seem crazy. Rina found herself in a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. It was clearly irrational, yet she could somehow understand it. She just couldn't grasp why Tamada's words sounded so seductive. Her whole being was telling her with all its might not to refuse this opportunity. She wanted to obey Tamada and leave all the decisions of her life in this girl's hands. Finally, she realized that the same thing had happened with Kudo. Your proposal seems utterly ridiculous, she said, but even so, she chose to do as Tamada said. With that, everything was settled between them. Now, there was a very simple order for her to carry out. She was told to kiss the boy tied to the bed. At the end of every fairy tale, the prince and princess kiss and live happily ever after, Tamada explained. If you decide to do as ordered, you will experience all the intensity that romance has to offer. Everything about this exotic girl, from head to toe, made Rina feel as if she were born to command. As soon as she obeyed, Tamada praised her. For our next task, we will punish the boy, and real help will be needed. Kudo, still tied up and confused, had no idea why this was happening. What have I done to deserve this? He pleaded desperately. Tamada replied coldly, you ended the call without permission. Kudo tried to explain, but she dismissed his words. It's not a problem. I'll make you look even better, even though the process may be a little painful. What are you going to do? Kudo asked, panic rising in his chest. Tamada smiled, her eyes glinting with a mix of excitement and malice. I'm going to pierce your tongue. Kudo couldn't believe what he was hearing. No, please, don't do this, he begged, but Tamada simply told him not to pull his tongue back. Desperate, he didn't know how she would pierce his tongue, and that only heightened his fear. Tamada needed help for this, so she asked Rina to open a package for her. We need to sterilize the instruments before using them, she instructed. Kudo was becoming increasingly frightened, realizing this was actually going to happen. The needle she was preparing was truly enormous. Stay still and remember that you're my puppet, Tamada said, her voice steady. Whenever you disobey me, you will be punished. But there's no need for you to be afraid. Just allow it to happen. Pretend you're a baby and let others take care of you. Slowly, she began to pierce his tongue. The needle is almost all the way through, she said, her tone almost clinical. Kudo struggled to hold back tears as he felt the sharp pain radiate through his tongue. A generous amount of blood began to flow, and Tamada turned to Rina. Bring me a towel, she ordered. Rina promptly handed over the item, her expression a mix of concern and curiosity. Is he going to be okay? She asked, glancing at Kudo, who was trembling in fear. Tamada assured her, Nothing bad will happen. He just needs to learn his place. In a dimly lit room, tension hung thick in the air. She didn't intend to harm him, but her message was clear. Disobedience had its consequences. Disobedient puppets, after all, must be punished. The girl looming over him had an otherworldly aura, definitely a demon in disguise. Yet, after that charged moment, she softened, cradling him tenderly in her lap. "You've done well to endure," she murmured, her fingers gently stroking his hair as if he were a child. His punishment had ended, and he had behaved admirably throughout. For that, he earned a gentle pat on the head. To her, they were utterly adorable, and she couldn't resist the urge to shower them with affection. "Do you know what people are most obsessed with?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "Love. It drives people to madness, makes them obsessive. And for us to become irreplaceable to each other, we should share something a little naughty." Kiba's eyes widened in surprise at her bold proposal. But deep down, he knew it was exactly what he desired. They were on the brink of something exhilarating. As she began to undress before him, he stammered, "We can't do that. It's not ethical." "Exactly," she replied with a playful grin. "That's why it's so enticing. If we share a secret like this, we'll forge a bond that's truly special." She wanted to be more than just a fleeting moment in their lives. She wanted to be unforgettable. "Think about it," she continued, her voice softening. "When I hug you like this, don't you feel comforted? The body releases endorphins that help ease stress and anxiety." She beckoned Rina to join them, and with a nod, she climbed onto the bed beside Kiba. Kiba's heart raced uncontrollably as the three of them lay together. Rina's touch felt warm against him, and he couldn't help but think how much warmer it would be if they were all naked. The mere thought sent his mind spiraling. "Have you ever seen people, together?" she asked, her curiosity piqued. Kiba's face flushed. He had never witnessed such things, let alone wanted to think about them. But she was undeterred. "I'd love to see that now. Let's try it together as our little secret. It would be perfect." She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "You can't say no if you truly like me. Don't disappoint me, Kiba." Rina chimed in, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "I can do it too." Kiba's mind raced, wishing for just a moment more to gather his thought. But before he could voice his hesitation, she was already on top of him, her intentions clear. Just as he grappled with the whirlwind of emotions, the apartment door swung open, and a man stepped inside. Kiba's heart sank. He had no idea who this intruder was, but the girl above him greeted him casually. "Dad?" she said, her voice a mix of surprise and defiance. Fury flashed across her father's face as he took in the scene before him. "What's going on here?" he demanded, his voice booming. "You need to explain yourself." Tomato, unfazed, shot back. "How did you even find me?" "I used a tracking app," he replied, his tone laced with disapproval. "You shouldn't be doing this. You're not married yet." He scooped her up in his arms, his protective instincts kicking in. "Is this Kiba? Are you two dating?" "Calm down, Dad," she said, her composure unnerving him. All she wanted was to see the boy happy, to ensure that everything was all right between them. But concern flickered in her father's eyes as he asked, "Did he force you into this?" Kiba quickly interjected, "I would never do that." The tension in the room was palpable, and the father's gaze shifted between the two young people, demanding an explanation. But Kiba knew there wasn't much to clarify. "We can't explain," he said, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. Raising a hand to his forehead, the father sighed, deciding it was best to calm down. "I'll talk to you later, Toma," he said, his voice softer now. Kiba was taken aback. This was Tomato's father? He looked much younger than he had expected. "It's curfew time," the father announced, turning to Kiba. "I'll take you home." But before they left, he had something important to discuss with Toma. The boy's heart raced as he realized he would be alone with her father for a car ride, an unexpected twist in an already complicated evening. As they settled into the car, the father's demeanor shifted. "I'm going to ask you a few questions, Kiba," he said, his voice low and serious. "Think carefully before you answer. Your responses will determine a lot." Kiba felt a knot tighten in his stomach as the man pressed the accelerator, the car speeding down the road. "I'm prepared to crash this car into a pole if you don't answer honestly about your relationship with my daughter," he warned, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. The straight stretch of road soon led to a sharp curve next to a cliff. "If you don't want to die today, you better be truthful," he said, his voice a mix of urgency and menace. "Are you two dating?" Kiba shook his head. "No, we're not." The father's expression hardened. So, it's purely physical? No, Kiba protested, his heart racing. The man's intensity was overwhelming, and he hesitated, trying to find the right words. We've kissed, but that's it. The father froze, his grip tightening on the steering wheel. You kissed her? Please, just watch the road, Kiba pleaded, panic rising in his chest. Furious, the man shouted, I'm going to kill you. Kiba's mind raced. I didn't initiate it. She's the one who saved my life. If it weren't for her, I would be dead. The father's expression shifted, confusion mingling with anger. Excuses, he spat, but Kiba pressed on. She deserves respect. She's capable of saving anyone, even if she seems a little wild. I just want to make her happy. Just as he finished, the car veered dangerously close to the guardrail. Kiba's heart dropped as the vehicle broke through the barrier, and time seemed to slow. He felt weightless, suspended in a moment of sheer terror, a spectator in his own life. Memories flooded his mind. Days long passed when he had been the youngest secretary to the company president. People whispered that his position was due to the president's fondness for him, but he had always known it was more than that. He had been entrusted with the care of the president's daughter, a little girl who had quickly captured his heart. He remembered her bright smile, the way she had greeted him with a mix of politeness and childlike honesty. You don't have to worry about me, she had said, her voice mature beyond her years. I'll just stay in my room. But he had wanted to play with her, to share in her joy. You're lying, she had teased, catching him off guard. There's no need to be polite. She had always behaved more like an adult than a child, and while that was admirable, it was also perfectly okay for her to be a little selfish. After all, that's how children are meant to be. With a spark of excitement, she suggested they play together, and before he knew it, she was darting around the room, playing tag. But as the game unfolded, concern creased his brow. They were still indoors, and he worried about the boundaries of their play. She, however, was determined to keep running until he caught her. It didn't take long for him to finally tag her, lifting her into his arms. You're full of energy, he chuckled, recognizing that it was normal for a child to be so spirited. Have I been childish enough? She asked, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Her question made him pause. She was certainly different from other children he had known. Next day at office, one of his employees confesses to him and asked, Will you go out with me? His heart warmed at her feelings, but he knew he had to refuse. I appreciate that, but you're already married, he said gently. Tears welled in her eyes as she replied, My marriage is in shambles. You're one of the few people who treats me well, and I thought you might accept me. He felt a pang of sympathy, but he stood firm. Cheating is still wrong. You need to resolve things with your husband. Gradually, she pulled herself together, realizing he was right. I'm sorry for letting my emotions take control, she said, her voice steadier now. He felt grateful for her understanding, recognizing that he had never been able to say no to someone like her. But then she approached him again, frustration etched on her face. You're despicable. Even though I filed for divorce, things are still a mess. Calm down, he urged, but she continued, You said you'd go out with me if I divorced him. I never said that, he replied, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on him. Her tears flowed more freely now. I finalized the divorce because of what you said. You should have rejected me from the start. He felt trapped, caught in a web of emotions he hadn't anticipated. He couldn't just leave her alone. He worried about what might happen to her. She might end up single for the rest of her life, and once he identified that vulnerability in someone, he found it hard to detach. It was his greatest flaw, one he knew all too well. Just then, a colleague called out to him, asking if the rumors were true. Someone should report this to the boss, he suggested. It would be better if he did it. There was a lot happening at the office, and workplace romances were always a problem. But for the boss, the truth didn't matter. All he cared about was productivity. He wanted to know the name of the colleague involved, and as he walked outside, he overheard some chatter. Suzuki, the crying woman, has been fired. The abruptness of her dismissal surprised him. Something must have happened. She wouldn't have been let go so suddenly otherwise. Despite her dramatic tendencies, he knew she had a history of workplace affairs and had become more of a nuisance than anything else. The president's decision to fire her seemed justified, especially since he had been falsely accused. Still, he couldn't help but wonder if it was the right punishment. At least he was relieved to know the president was on his side, But that support came with a caveat. His boss only cared about the work he produced. As he pondered this, a small voice broke through his thoughts. The little girl called out to him, concern etched on her face. "Are you okay? You look a bit down. Did something happen?" In that moment, he realized she was the only one who genuinely cared about him. But before he could respond, he noticed a bruise on her arm. "What happened?" he asked, alarmed. "It's my fault," she said, her voice small. "I was a bad child." His heart sank. "How did you get that bruise?" She hesitated before revealing, "It was when my father got really angry and hit me with a shoe." He felt a surge of disbelief. Why would he do that? "It was because of my test score," she explained, her eyes downcast. "I got a 0, which is unusual for me. I handed in a blank paper on purpose because he never praises me. I just wanted his attention." As a result of her father's anger, she found herself facing punishment once again. After that day, her wounds began to multiply. Concerned, he asked if she had been hit again, and she nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "I handed in a blank sheet again," she admitted, her eyes downcast, "and during dinner I had an accident." Now she believed her father simply hated her. The young man, feeling a surge of empathy, replied, "I don't like my father either." Her response surprised him. "I wish you could be my real dad," she said, her words striking a deep chord within him. This situation couldn't continue. He decided to confront the director, insisting that the abuse had to stop. "You need to make him stop hurting that child," he urged. But the director dismissed his concerns, claiming the bruises were from her playing alone, and that she sometimes acted like a boy. Losing patience, the young man was told to return to work. Despite the dismissal, he couldn't shake the feeling that he needed to do something. The president's indifference only fueled his frustration. They were business partners, not friends, and mixing personal matters with work was frowned upon. He felt powerless, unsure of how to help her. Then, everything changed when the president was hospitalized due to cancer. Despite the gravity of the situation, the little girl remained by his side, the only one visiting him during his many hospitalizations. As the years passed, his condition worsened significantly, and he eventually passed away, leaving her alone at his funeral. On that lonely day, while they stood together, she turned to him and asked, "Would you like to be my father?" That simple question changed everything. In that moment, he realized that the little girl before him was the one he had failed to protect. She needed him to keep her safe, and he finally made a decision. He would do everything in his power to help her. From that day forward, he became her new father. The girl was overjoyed, hoping they could grow closer. "You have to protect me," she said, her eyes shining with trust. Suddenly, Kiba jolted awake inside the car, dangling precariously on the edge of a cliff. The vehicle was about to fall, and they needed to escape quickly. He shook the man beside him, asking if he was okay. The man mumbled a few incoherent words, and Kiba felt a wave of relief wash over him. He was still alive. "Can you move?" Kiba asked urgently. The man nodded, puzzled. "Are you trying to help me?" "Yes," Kiba replied, determination in his voice. Tears welled in the man's eyes, and Kiba's heart ached at the sight. This man, despite his flaws, was capable of feeling deeply for others. "Please take care of my daughter," he said, his voice trembling. "Of course," Kiba assured him, though the thought of living under the same roof still felt overwhelming. "Thank you for understanding," the man said, his gratitude evident. "Now we need to get back to her." After resolving the chaos of their injuries, they finally returned to the girl. She looked up at them, her brow furrowed. "You took a long time. What were you doing? And why do you both look like you've been beaten up?" The man hesitated, wanting to discuss their living arrangements, but Kumaru interrupted. "It's fine. Are you really going to say I can't live with you? I don't like it when you disagree with me." Her defiance terrified him. "It's fine," he said, trying to placate her. "You have my full approval." Kiba, still unsure, asked, "Is it really okay?" The man sighed. "It's not, but she means everything to me. I'm afraid to say no to her." As he approached Kiba, he began to plead. "Please, don't make any mistakes that you can't undo. Do we understand each other?" It seemed that his chaotic life was only just beginning, given how close they had all become. The man urged Ka to keep her distance as he gazed out the window. Below, a girl sat lamenting her actions, feeling the weight of her choices. "I did it again," she whispered to herself, despairing. No matter what she did, things always ended up this way. The only relief she felt came when she took a life. People were so quick to hide their flaws, and it was all too easy to bend a body once it was dead. Suddenly, they would say they couldn't look at her anymore and vanish from her life. No one loves me, she thought, feeling like a ghost among the living. That man was just like all the others, sitting on the ground, indifferent to her pain. I wish I were dead, she murmured, her heart heavy with sorrow. A boy approached her cautiously, concern etched on his face. Are you okay? He asked gently. She looked up, surprised by his kindness. Do you want something to drink? He offered, and she nodded, grateful for the distraction. As they sat together, he asked her name. Sashigoa, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. And you? I'm just a boy, he said with a small smile. I thought you looked lost. He shared that he used to live in constant anxiety, wishing every day that he wouldn't wake up alive. But then he found something that helped him escape that darkness. What was it? She asked, intrigued. It's simple, he replied. I started believing in God. That was all I needed, a belief. Sashi frowned, skepticism creeping in. It's impossible to believe in something that doesn't exist, she said, shaking her head. Maybe, he conceded, but you should believe so you can be saved, just like I was. His words struck a chord within her. Can you be my God? She asked suddenly, her eyes searching his. It doesn't matter if God is real or not. I just need someone to save me. And maybe you're that person. Taken aback, he stammered, I need to go to the bathroom. He stood up quickly, leaving her alone. Time passed, and he didn't return. When the waitress approached, she informed Sashi that they were closing. Frustrated, she asked for the bill and left, anger boiling inside her. He was just a liar, she thought bitterly. He approached me, claiming he wanted to save me, and then he vanished. People always seemed honest right before they left, revealing their true selves. And when she killed them, they belonged to her for that brief moment, becoming the most intense memories in her consciousness. That's why she couldn't stop what she was doing, even as she hoped for salvation. Exhausted, she realized it was morning. The first bus of the day was about to arrive. She needed to go home and sleep. On her way, she bumped into a boy, his body covered in bandages. She hadn't been paying attention, and her heart sank at the sight. Are you okay? She asked, holding his face gently in her hands. She stared at him, concern etched on her features. I'm worried the bump might have reopened some of your wounds. I'm fine, he replied, a hint of discomfort in his voice. Relief washed over her. Just be more careful next time, she said, stepping back. As she walked away, she couldn't shake the feeling that she had startled him. He seemed frightened, and she wondered if her touch had disgusted him. Could it be? She thought, overthinking every detail. She couldn't handle the uncertainty. She needed to clear things up immediately. Later, the school bell rang, signaling the end of classes. She approached Kiba, eager to know if he would be free afterward. There's a sale nearby, and since Rio and I are heading somewhere else, I was hoping you could go for me, she said, her eyes bright with anticipation. Kiba agreed, trying to recall the school uniform she had worn. After he agreed to help, Toma beamed with gratitude, leaning in to give him a quick kiss. The gesture left him flustered. We'll see each other soon, she promised, her smile lingering in his mind. But as he hurried away, he felt a sense of urgency. The discount was only available until 6, and it was already past 5. Just as he picked up his pace, a hand grabbed him by the shirt. It was the woman he had bumped into earlier. What do you think of me? He finally recognized her after looking closely at her face. Behind them, Tamada had found them and stepped forward, her expression firm. Step away from Kiba, she commanded the woman, her tone leaving no room for argument. Intrigued, the woman raised an eyebrow. Are you talking to me? She asked, feigning innocence. I didn't mean to scare anyone. I just wanted to have a brief conversation with him. Tamada's protective nature sparked curiosity in the woman. Unfortunately, the boy belongs to me, Tamada replied, her voice steady. So, you should take your hands off him. With that, they began to leave, but the woman's indifference stung. She spoke as if Kiba's well-being didn't matter at all. This made her think harder about the situation. What expression would Tamada wear if she were at death's door? But she couldn't act on those thoughts. She had to restrain herself. Kiba hadn't been able to buy the eggs, but Tamada reassured him. It's fine. At least we managed to get ice cream. The vibrant colors of the ice cream caught his eye, and he noticed how much Tamada loved the bright pink flavor that tasted like mint chocolate. From its appearance, he would never have guessed that was the flavor she adored. She offered him a taste, but he declined, shaking his head. "I don't like chocolate." Tamada smiled knowingly. "I won't forget that," she said, continuing to enjoy her treat. But as she ate, some of the ice cream dripped onto her clothes, causing her to frown. Determined to finish quickly, she hurried to eat the rest so she could wash her blouse. Meanwhile, Kiba and Rio were reminded to behave themselves. They agreed to wait for Tamada's return, and she thanked them before heading to the restroom to wash her hands. Fortunately, there were no stains left on her blouse, and it was time to head back. But as she exited, the tall woman was waiting for her. In an instant, she gagged Tamada, whispering, "Stay quiet from now on. If you make a scene, I'll kill you." Outside, Kiba and Rio noticed she was taking longer than expected. Concerned, Kiba asked Rio to check the restroom. "I'll go with you," she agreed, and they hurried to investigate. Upon reaching the restroom, they found it empty. "Tamada's gone," Rio said, panic rising in her voice. "I couldn't find her anywhere." But she had discovered something on the floor, a scarf that Tamada usually wore. Worry crept into Kiba's heart. "What if she's been kidnapped?" he said, his voice trembling. Suddenly, Rio collapsed to the ground, and Kiba rushed to her side, trying to wake her. But he was met with a forceful headbutt. When she opened her eyes, it was clear that a different personality had awakened within her. "Rina?" Kiba asked, startled. Irritated, she replied, "We need to search for Tamada immediately." She quickly asked if there was a tracker on Tamada's phone. Kiba remembered that he had registered her headphones and phone for tracking purposes. Using his own phone, he located her device. "She's in a small enclosed space," he said, anxiety flooding his voice. "She's being held hostage." Meanwhile, Tamada was in a dark room, her eyes blindfolded. The woman holding her had a mocking expression. "Let me go home quickly," Tamada demanded, trying to maintain her composure. As the blindfold was removed, she studied the woman's face, trying to gauge her intentions. "What's wrong with this girl?" the woman wondered, unable to figure out what Tamada was hiding. "Are you afraid of anything?" she asked, her tone challenging. Tamada shrugged, her curiosity piqued. "I don't know what I should be afraid of in this situation. If it's about dying, I'm not scared at all. In fact, I'm very curious about it." "What do you mean?" the woman pressed, intrigued. "I want to know what happens after death," Tamada explained, her voice steady. "Maybe it's just emptiness. Or perhaps there really is another life, only the dead find out. To me, death is just a part of life, which is why I don't fear it." She paused, a glimmer of mischief in her eyes. "And there's something I like even more, saving the best for last. Since I know I won't die here, I have a proposal for you." With a newfound confidence, she continued, "I want control over your life." As they approached the location where they believed Tamada was being held, an unsettling sound echoed through the hallway. Kiba turned to the girl beside him, urgency in his voice. "Find a place to hide. If something happens, I'll shout. If you hear me, call the police." Worry creased her brow as she nodded, her mind racing with thoughts of his safety. What if the kidnapper was a bigger man or armed? She felt a knot of anxiety tighten in her stomach as she scurried to find a hiding spot. Kiba pressed on, determination fueling his steps. He couldn't afford to lose focus now. Tamada had saved him before, and it was his turn to repay the favor. But as he ran, he soon found himself at a dead end. "No time to panic," he reminded himself. "I have to save her." Meanwhile, inside the apartment, the woman had punched the wall in frustration, her hand throbbing from the impact. "Don't talk about things you don't understand," she snapped at Tamada, her voice laced with anger. "You can't do anything for me." But Tamada, undeterred, replied confidently, "No one knows for sure, but I might at least understand what's going on in your mind." The woman's eyes widened, her unease growing. Being understood was something she had always sought, and Tamada's words struck a nerve. "You've suffered a lot in your life," Tamada continued, her tone softening. "No one understands you, and no one loves you. Everyone approaches you with their own interests and then abandons you. Those people are all irresponsible." Tamada's empathy resonated with the woman. "I understand you because I've been through a similar situation. When no one loves me, I make people love me, and when God doesn't exist, you have to create one. That's why I'm willing to become your God." "If you wish to follow me," Tamada said, "you should start by untying those ropes. If you decide to free me with your own hands, I promise to save you from despair." But if you don't, you can move forward and finish me off. Just know that salvation will never come to you if you choose that path." Outside, Kiba struggled to break down the door. When he finally burst in, he was stunned to see the strange woman from earlier kneeling and kissing Tamada's hand. "I always believed in you," the woman said, looking up at Kiba with a mix of reverence and desperation. "I knew you would come to her aid." "What's happening here?" Kiba demanded, confusion swirling in his mind. Tamada calmly explained, "The woman untied my ropes." Kiba's brow furrowed. "Who kidnapped you?" "The same person who set me free," she replied, her voice steady. The woman interjected, "I gave up on killing her because now I see her as my god." Kiba was left completely baffled. "What do you mean?" "It's time for the first divine revelation," Tamada said, her tone serious. "You should no longer kill people unless ordered to do so. Can you bear that burden?" The woman hesitated before responding, "I probably can." Realizing they hadn't introduced themselves yet, Tamada smiled and said, "I'm Tamada. What's your name?" After a moment of hesitation, the woman replied, "Sakoa Hiro." "Pleasure to meet you," Tamada said, her smile brightening the room. Kiba watched, feeling a strange mix of innocence and cruelty in her expression. Outside, the other girl tried to enter, frustration bubbling within her. "Can someone please explain what's going on?" she pleaded. Back in the apartment, Tamada turned to Kiba, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "Look at me! I'm wearing my summer uniform again. It's that time of year." Kiba chuckled, relieved to see her in good spirits. "It must be a relief for you to have your arm free," he said, glancing at her unbound wrists. "What happened after Sakoa?" he asked, curiosity piqued. Tamada shrugged. "She contacts me from time to time." Kiba frowned, sensing something was off. "Is that really all? You just left her alone?" Tamada nodded, her expression serious. "I couldn't understand why she was alone either, but for me, the answer is simple. Salvation is built through pain. She needs to suffer much more. Otherwise, I can't become the benevolent goddess I'm meant to be." Tamada watched the exchange with a mix of amusement and concern. Kiba was clearly agitated, and she could sense that the girl was toying with him. "You're going too far," he warned, his voice tense. Just then, someone approached them. It was the jerk from earlier, the one who had bullied Kiba in the past. "Do you have a minute to talk?" he asked, a smirk on his face. Tamada interjected, "He doesn't need to go. It's probably just a waste of time anyway." The jerk shrugged, unfazed. "Doesn't matter if it's a waste of time. I have something to discuss with Kiba." With that, they left the room, Tamada's menacing glare following them as they walked down the hall. Once they reached the rooftop, Kiba hesitated. "I'd rather not talk to you," he said, trying to keep his distance. The jerk stepped closer, his annoyance evident. "You still annoy me a lot," he said, his tone mocking. "Was it you who posted that video online? Smart move. Was it the transfer student's idea?" Kiba's patience was wearing thin. "What do you want?" he demanded, wanting to get straight to the point. Unexpectedly, the jerk said he had come to apologize, something Kiba hadn't anticipated. The anger bubbled up inside him, and before he could think, he punched the jerk square in the face. "What the hell?" Kiba exclaimed, surprised by his own reaction. He was furious. The jerk shouldn't be apologizing as if he hadn't done anything wrong. The jerk, rubbing his jaw, looked confused. "I'm just trying to be friends," he said, his tone almost sincere. "Friends?" Kiba shouted, incredulous. "Have you forgotten what you put me through?" The jerk shrugged, seemingly unfazed. "That's why I'm apologizing. I know it won't fix things, but I thought it was worth a shot." Kiba's anger flared again, and he punched him once more. "How many times are you going to keep talking?" The jerk winced, clearly irritated. "I can't believe this is happening. It's unfair that I'm trying to make amends, and you just keep hitting me." Kiba felt a mix of frustration and confusion. "I wish you would just stay a jerk," he muttered. "If you change, then there's no one left to hate." The jerk laughed, shaking his head. "You're a real weirdo, you know that? I come to apologize, and if you don't want to forgive me, that's fine. You can keep hating me." Kiba's brow furrowed. "Are you really suggesting that I should just let you off the hook? You think I'm against the idea of you lifting this weight off your shoulders?" "Exactly," the jerk replied, a glint of mischief in his eyes. "So how about we settle this with a fight? If I win, you accept my apology. If you win, you can do whatever you want with me." Kiba scoffed. "It's easy for you to say that. You can fight on equal footing with others, but I can't." In a moment of desperation, Kiba kicked him between the legs, fighting dirty because he didn't care. He was terrified of the jerk, but he kept throwing punches until the jerk managed to grab both of his hands, stopping him. "Dude, I've been getting punched since I started talking, and it hurts a lot," the jerk exclaimed, his voice strained. "You're the one making this unequal. You always look down on me, even though I just wanted to talk." Kiba now realized that there was a confused heart standing in front of him. The jerk didn't like being ignored, and it was clear he was ready to retaliate. But before fists could fly, Tamada appeared, stepping between them. "Letting fists do the talking is a wonderful idea at the epitome of youth," she said, her voice light, but there was a seriousness in her eyes. "But it's not everything. Something is still missing." She approached the jerk, a playful smile on her face. "What's missing is a generous dose of love." The jerk looked bewildered, unsure of what she was suggesting. As she turned to leave, she waved goodbye to Kiba. "You'd better run away, Kiba. Once I return, we'll settle things." Kiba could only watch in shock as the two walked away, his mind racing with confusion. After that, class resumed as usual, but neither Tamada nor the jerk returned. Kiba's irritation grew. Ara approached him, concern etched on her face. "Do you know where Tamada is?" "She left with the jerk," Kiba replied, recalling her earlier words about creating love. A wave of unsettling thoughts washed over him. It couldn't be what he was imagining. If it were, he wouldn't be able to bear it. Just then, his phone buzzed with a notification. He checked it and saw that Tamada had returned home early. "I have to go," he told Ara, rushing out the door to find Tamada. When he entered their home, he was greeted by her cheerful presence. "The jerk has something to say," he blurted out, not expecting anything good to come from it. Tamada raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "What does he want?" Kiba approached, feeling a mix of dread and curiosity. The jerk stepped forward, looking serious. "I need to confess something," he said, his tone earnest. "Don't come any closer," Kiba warned, his heart racing. But the jerk continued, "I love you." Kiba was taken aback, his mind racing to process the confession. "What?" he stammered, unsure how to respond. Tamada leaned in, whispering a few things to him. "In a way, I kind of brainwashed him," she revealed, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "I know you don't want to be bullied again, so I made the jerk fall in love with you. It worked out even better than I expected." Kiba's mind reeled. "That's insane," he exclaimed, glancing at the jerk, who looked hopeful. "What are you two talking about?" the jerk asked, clearly confused. "Shut up!" Kiba snapped, holding his head in his hands. The jerk, undeterred, said, "I'll do my best to make you like me." Kiba felt the situation spiraling out of control in a way he hadn't anticipated. Just then, Tamada approached him again, her expression serious. "I have something to share," she said. "I'd like to have a girls' night this evening." She paused, gauging his reaction. "I'm sorry for the short notice, but you can stay at the jerk's house in the meantime." Kiba's heart sank. Of all the possible outcomes, this one was easily among the worst. I don't know, guys. What should I say about this manga? I leave it up to you guys. So comment down below, what kind of manga is this?